Hello, my name is Marissa, and I will be doing a fun Harold Hollingsworth inspired project with you today. He does a nice collage piece with font, with imagery, different images that he uses, and different blocks of color that he uses within his piece. So for this project, what you'll need is paper. I am just using your standard 8.5 by 11 copy paper that you can get from your computer printers. If you don't have the copy paper, you can use drawing paper, construction paper, line notebook paper from your spiral notebooks. So any type of paper will work. I am working 8.5 by 11. Our drawing materials, we will be using our standard HB number 2 pencil like what you have at school. I am using a Sharpie marker and a nice inky black ballpoint pen. And then I will also have marker. You can use thick marker or you can use a thinner marker, whatever you have available. I also have colored pencil. If you don't have colored pencil, you can always use crayon. I also have my handy dandy eraser. I like the big chunky erasers just because, as great as pencils are, the erasers that they give you are super tiny and I like to really erase. So I will be using my big old chunky eraser. If you don't have that, your little eraser will be fine. And finally, I have my scissors and my glue stick. You can also use tape. Any kind of tape will do as well. So masking tape, scotch tape, anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get us started. And we're going to start with our word. So Harold Hollingsworth uses a lot of font in his work. So what I thought would be nice, especially in this time, is a word that you feel like is inspirational for you, or maybe a word that describes you. I've chosen the word artist because that is what I am. And I feel like I make a really good connection to that word. So what I have done is I've printed off my letters. You can go into Microsoft Word or whatever writing document you have on your computer and just print your letters off nice and big. You can choose different fonts for each letter. That's always super fun. I love how he always uses big, bold, fun fonts in his pieces. Don't have access to a printer, you can always come up with your own. This is an example of me just playing with different fonts and whatnot. So I kind of drew out my own little letters here. So that's always something that you can do if you don't have the ability to print out off of a printer at home. So now that we've gotten our materials going here, I'm going to start off with our working on getting our letters on our paper. So we're going to really fill up our paper with our letters. The thing that I really like about the printer paper is it's a thin sheet of paper. So when I print my letters off, I can really see them through the printer paper, so I can trace right through. I like that because I can get the exact same font that I printed off. If you're using a drawing paper or construction paper, something that's a bit thicker, you won't be able to do this. Just lay your paper across and see the transfer come through. What you will need to do is you'll need to probably go up to maybe a window, or maybe you have a sliding glass door or something in your house that you can get onto, and you're just going to tape your letter onto the window, and then you will tape your paper over it. And that works as like a little makeshift light board. And then you'll be able to see your letter through the light coming in the window. So that's if you're using a thicker paper. If you're just using computer paper, this will work fine. You're just going to put your letter down, and then what you'll do is I like to move my letters around and really get kind of fun with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, I'm going to put my A up here in the corner, and then I am going to trace right over. I think that looks kind of cool. So I have my A right up there in the corner, and then I really want to fill my space. I want to create a nice composition so that I have a lot of movement in my piece. So next thing I'm going to do is my R. So another thing that I have been thinking about is, do I want to overlap my letters? And I do. So this is, again, optional. If you don't want to overlap your letters, you don't have to. What I'm going to do is I am going to outline the rest of my letters, or I'm sorry, trace the rest of my letters, and I might move a little bit faster and speed this video up a bit so that we can get to the next step. So if you need to, you can pause, rewind, whatever you need to do to feel like you're getting back on track with me. So now I have my fonts I have my word written down in all my different font styles. The next step that I want to do is I wanted to add in some fun areas of color. So before we add in any kind of imagery, you can see how his fonts are all kind of broken up, and then he adds imagery over everything once he's done with his collage piece. So before I do that, I really like all these different blocks of color that he has. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose different areas. Is going to be to color this whole piece in. So he's kind of chosen his primary colors here. He does throw in a secondary color over here because we know that our blues and yellows make greens, but he's working mostly with primary colors. So I think I might do something similar to that. But maybe, maybe what I'll do is I'll work with secondary colors. So I'm going to start with I'll start with my fonts. So I'm going to go in, I'll speed this process up a little on the video so that we can get through it. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using my ballpoint pen and my Sharpie marker to be filling in and to be outlining my letters here. What I've done here is I've filled in some areas fully with black, and then I outlined these with the Sharpie. I did everything in the ballpoint pen first because I like to have everything. You can always go thicker with your lines. You can't go back to thinner. So I like to do everything in the ballpoint first. And then afterwards, I looked at what I did, and then I was able to go back and really create those nice thicker lines and fill in where I wanted to. I loved how this letter turned out, so I went back and I kind of replicated it here. I think it adds a lot of nice compositional balance to the piece. The one letter I did leave blank, but that's because I really was looking at my sample piece, my reference art here, and I noticed he had a letter here, but he had only used color. He didn't use any black outline for it. So I think I'm going to do something similar where one of my letters is going to be filled in with color. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I said I wanted to work with secondary colors for this. So I have my orange, I have my purple, and I have my green for my secondary colors. So he went primary, I'm going secondary. I'll probably throw a primary in there somewhere because he threw a secondary in his. So I think I'm going to go with maybe my orange for my S. And I feel like I'm ready to move on to my next step, which are my squares. So I'm going to be using markers and I'm going to be using crayons for this. So here we go. So now you'll even notice that I didn't even have a purple crayon, so I had to move to a different material. So I went over to my color pencils. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of go in and clean up a little bit. So one option for this is you can kind of go in with a color that's a little bit darker than the orange and create kind of like a cool little shading piece. So I've chosen the red and I'm just going to kind of go in around the red, the edge with the red and create kind of like this cool little gradient effect. In this process is we're going to, and I know some people would be like, oh no, but it's part of the collage process, is we're going to cut our papers. So you can do this many ways. You can either use a good old ruler, say, that's all good and well. I don't really like to do it that way. What I like to do is I like to take my paper and fold it right in half. Then I like to take my paper and fold it in half again the other way. I am meeting in the middle so that each side is equal. So it's basically just folding it in half and then folding in half again. So I've done fourths this way. Now the trickier part is going the other way, is going in thirds. So what I like to do here is I like to take two sides and make it so that they are equally lined up with each other. Just like that. And then I kind of fold them in a little bit. So they've made like this little sandwich. And then when I pull away, all I have to do is line this up here. And then it's already lined up for me. So I line that corner with that fold. And then I have one. And then I line this corner with this fold. And then it automatically lines up. And then I have my thirds. Now, when we go to cut, we can't really see the folds that well. So what I like to do is I like to take my pencil and then just quickly go over the lines of my folds. So handy dandy scissors. It's all mixed up. I've mixed up everything. And now this is where, if you like puzzles as much as I do, which would be pretty intense, what you're going to do is, instead of getting them back into their original layout, you're going to play with your pieces and say, ooh, how can I arrange this so that it somewhat resembles the same style as Hollingsworth. So you've seen, it took me a little while to kind of play around with pieces and move them around, but I've kind of created something that I really think is nice and balanced. So now the next step in our process is mounting. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a piece of, you could use cardboard, you could use the back, like if you have these fun little notepads, you could use the back of the notepad, just tear this off. You could use maybe like a cereal box cover. Just cut your cereal box up and then just use and flip it around and use the inside. For us, we're doing this one, so we want to make sure. So what I usually do is I grab a piece of cardboard. I have a lot of it now because I've had to have a lot of things shipped to my house since I can't go out. So what I've done is I've taken a piece of cardboard from one of the boxes, and then I've just laid my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper on it, and I've kind of created a nice little like 1/4 inch frame around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking my paper and I'm just drawing a line around the paper so I know where I want my piece to sit when I go to glue it in, because now we're gluing our puzzle onto our board. So for this part, I have my layout, I have my board. Now I'm going to use my glue stick to glue all my pieces onto my board. So I will kind of quickly move through this. Though one thing I will say is, if you're doing your glue sticks, have a piece of scrap paper or something. I like to call them glue boards because you don't want to get glue all over everything. And what you're doing is you're just taking your glue stick and you're going right around the perimeter of your paper, and then you're going to glue it down and following your little guide. To. But the part of the project now that I want to be able to get through is little bits of inspiration. So he has flowers and whatnot in his. So I've kind of picked up some things that I like. I love cupcakes and I love clouds. So I am going to use my pencil to kind of go in and find areas where I would like to just add a little bit more to my piece. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in. He adds color to his as well. He paints in there, but he does his outlining with his ink. some imagery to it, I'm going to go in and add a little bit of my complementary color. And I think I'm pretty much all set. If you want to, you can always add a nice little border. Harold Hollingsworth inspired artwork.